Welcome to 10 Minute Magic, a weekly format covering news in the world of Magic the Gathering in 10 minutes or less. I am Joseph Dunlap.
And I am Ben Cotty. And this is what's been going on in Magic the Gathering this week. The fallout from the shadow over the Pro Tour continues. In case you've been under a rock for the past couple of weeks, there were changes announced at Pro Tour Shadows over Innistrad to the organised play. The removal of the remaining Modern Pro Tour, the same announcement that got made a year ago, but to much less fanfare this year, and everybody seems quite okay with that. Hall of Famer appearance fees were reduced in that they only receive them now for attending the Pro Tour in which the new class of the Hall of Fame will be inducted. The RPTQs are now only awarding the top 4 slots to qualify for the Pro Tour, rather than being based on the size. But to offset this, there's been a new RPTQ given to Italy because they consistently got the most players across the world. And then there was an increased prize pool for the World Championships. This year it will be $250,000, and next year $500,000 for the total prize pool for the World Championships. Part of this money came from the Hall of Fame appearance fees changing, but the bulk of it came from a cut to the Platinum appearance fees. For anything except for the GP events, they had a cut in what they were receiving, so World Magic Cups and the such, but the big one was for attending the Pro Tours. Currently they receive $3,000 for just turning up at a Pro Tour. This was going to be cut from the season coming to $250 per Pro Tour. The impact on the Platinum Pros was around $11,000, and in the case of Paul Rietzl, who's also a Hall of Famer, qualified for many of these other tournaments, it would have been in the region of around $15,000. The reason the Platinum cut was sort of main bone of contention and why it blew up in the whole of the community, it wasn't the size of the cut, because I think everybody sort of notices that Wizards can cut things or move money around and put it in place where they think it's best for driving Magic, and having a big World Championships fund really does that in the world of esport. But it's the fact that of the timing. It was carried out 3/4 of the way through the current season. So after the next Pro Tour in Sydney, all those Platinums locked in for next year would receive all these benefits, and they spent 3/4 of the year working towards them, suddenly to be told they weren't going to get them. It was subsequently reversed on the Tuesday following, so it seems that the coming season people will get what they were going to get, and the world's pot has stayed high, which is great, but there will still be a lot of discussions going on about what the pro payouts will look like after that season. And really something struck me since then, over the last couple of weeks, sort of sums up how much damage this has potentially done, is that John Finkel, 15 times top 8 Pro Tour player, the best of all time, has actually done his first 2 streams of Hearthstone on Twitch, learning how to play the game, advertising it on his Twitter, and that's only happened since this announcement came out, and he was one of the biggest voices voicing his concerns. It may just be a sign of things to come.
Recently on the Blogatog, Mark Rosewater responded to complaints concerning lack of availability of competitive staples. A few days ago, a user asked him, "It's quite upsetting that we can't easily access and play the game competitively because of availability of cards. Should this be as much, if not more, of a concern?" in reference to Mark Rosewater saying it's very important we don't upset players, which is interesting considering the topic you just discussed, Ben. Mark Rosewater replied that this is a problem that Wizards is aware of and are working on. He starts off in his reply by bringing up Modern Masters and Eternal Masters, then he points out, "It's very easy to make a video or write an article and say, just do X, when you don't truly understand the repercussions of doing X. Players are excellent at identifying problems but have a harder time solving them because they're not privy to the hundreds of issues and restrictions you have to deal with." So that could be things that you have to deal with when you're in R&D, or maybe specifically constraints put on you by Wizards or even Hasbro.
Yeah, it's interesting that it harkens back to what I was discussing, which is there may have been 101 good reasons why Wizards made the changes, the Platinum, but we weren't privy to them, and the timing seemed to stink. So even if it was a really great decision, we might never get to know that. So there's a Super League that's run by Randy Buehler. You may know it as the Vintage Super League. I think there's also been the Standard Super League. We now add to the rafts of that the Community Super League. It started last week, and it's running every Thursday night for the next few weeks. It's made up of podcasters, streamers, and Aaron Forsyth from Wizards of the Coast. It's designed to showcase the more casual side of Magic, with some interesting stipulation weeks, This week is going to be Innistrad Plane Constructed, taking from obviously the original Innistrad block and also Shadows over Innistrad, so that should be very interesting. The return of the iRoot Chef, where deck building is designed to be more flavorful than powerful, although you get the top marks for having both, as well as looking like a lot of fun. Last week everyone battled with the decks from the Shadows over Innistrad Pro Tour Gauntlet. I really like that everybody gets a shot at commentary. So after they finish their matches and before the next match starts, they log in, you get to see the video feeds from them, and then during the match after theirs, they will commentate on it. So everybody really gets a chance to shine. The ability of entertaining people to cast a match of Magic really shines through, and it does begin to highlight maybe the sometimes stale state of the mainstream coverage teams and some of the criticisms that are often labelled at them.
And that is the news for this past week. We move on now to talk about feedback that you, our readers on Manaleak.com, have given us in the past few weeks. First off, we come to the article from Graeme McIntyre, Sexism, Yes, in Your Gaming Community and What You Can Do About It. Around this time last year, a number of prominent articles in Star City Games and Channel Fireball highlighted some of the challenges that female Magic players face in breaking into the game, and especially at the local store environment. The article has to date received over 30 comments, with some very mixed opinions and heated discussions. In the comments, Ryan Osborne Smith says, "Thank you so much for this article. Whilst for health reasons I have been playing Magic less and less as time goes by, I still have a sizable collection and have been teaching my daughter how to play in the hope that someday she will want to play more competitively than on the dining room table, turning 6/6 creatures sideways in an attempt to beat me down."
Yeah, for those that do go in and read the article, I would ask you to sort of form your own opinions, take into heart what it's asking you to do, because at its core, really, all it's saying is we need to do a better job to make this game and the environment of the local stores more accessible for everybody. So our next article is the top 5 Magic the Gathering planes every Magic player wants to see again by somebody called Joseph Dunlap. This was a mammoth article. It took us to some of the game's most iconic locations. There is so much here for the Vorthos crowd. It makes you realize that there's so much lore in Magic even before the recent push on story. Me personally, I long for a return to Dominaria. That's where my Magic journey began. And then on to some of our commenters. Bode Bernos says, "As far as I'm concerned, Wizards can stop returning to old planes. The return blocks rarely live up to the expectations held by the community. So in turn, players get disappointed because the original block was much better, stronger, more fun. Time for new concepts." And I know that Marrow has had to put out some articles explaining sort of, it feels like we've returned to more sets recently, but actually we kind of haven't. But we should expect maybe some newer planes to dominate over the next year or two.
I would actually like to respond to that comment, because I wasn't aware of that one until I saw you put that in the Google Doc, because it must have been one of the more recent comments. First point here is that players get disappointed because the original block is much better and stronger and more fun. And that's actually not true at all. I've never heard that complaint ever. Usually you hear, well, this card is strictly worse than this card. Typically, what I hear is they capture the flavor of the previous block. They did a great job with kind of returning to the world. And then the Wizards no longer returning to old planes comment, there's a problem in that, because then we put that restriction on them never go to a plane twice. It would snowball really badly the problem of having to come up with a new world every 2 sets. That just is not a practical model to follow, so I feel like that's an unrealistic expectation to put on Wizards.
Yep, definitely fair. Christopher Baylor says, "Superb article. It's really hard to piece together historical Magic lore as a player, and I learned so much cool stuff from this." And I would really echo that if you want to see the different areas of some of the earlier planes of Magic and what the story looked like, this is a really good entry point in this article for you.
It was, as you said, Ben, a mammoth of an article. Just getting the information together took a really long time, but I actually did learn a lot more than I thought I would learn. Alright, so let's move on to another article that's not by me. This is 5 Great Reasons Why Every Magic Player Should Give Magic Duels a Try by Alexandros Chapin. An often underlooked digital form of Magic the Gathering is Duels of the Planeswalkers. Duels now rolls out updates with every standard set, and offers a simplified entry point for new players. So we have a comment from A. Frederick Sansate, who says, "It's a fun alternative to in-real-life Magic, especially when you've been gone for a while." Albert Davidov says, "Duels brought me back to Magic the Gathering after years of abandonment. Love the fact that it requires no financial investment. What more could you ask for?" And then Bez Besson, "I'll play it as soon as it's available on either Android or Linux." which I suppose is a fair point there. It is only available for limited platforms, although it is enjoyable to watch in stream. Definitely give that a try if you're wanting to see how it plays out. Just go find it on Twitch. It's actually quite fun to watch on Twitch. The gameplay actually dwarfs that of Magic the Gathering Online.
Yeah, in some ways it really is a slightly superior product in weird ways to Magic the Gathering Online. And it's definitely my go-to when I see we have a new player turn up at the store and says, look, I want to learn how to play this more effectively at a high level before I come to an F&M or something. I point them in this direction because I think it's just great for teaching people the fundamentals of the game.
Well, that's it for 10-Minute Magic. Ben, as always, thanks for joining me.
It's been a pleasure as always. And if you would like to get hold of me, the best way to do so is on Twitter. That's at Carbureeta, CARBOREETA, or on Facebook. And feedback on the podcast is always welcome.
You can also find me on Twitter as Joseph_Dunlap. This has been 10-Minute Magic. See you guys next week.
Bye, everybody.